Hello, welcome to GeoBuiz, the online video channel from Geospatial Media and Communications. We have in our studios a special guest today, Mladen Stojic, President Hexagon Geospatial. Mladen, welcome to GeoBuiz.
Thank you, it's good to be here.
Thank you. I was listening to your talk I should say it's a scintillating talk at Hexagon Live, which has happened very recently, where you have advocated for a fearless experience of change.
Absolutely.
Yes, but as you understand and everyone understands, change is something that is pretty daunting and intimidating often.
Yeah.
So how is Hexagon, because Hexagon is all about smart change, so how is Hexagon making it easy for users to make this transition with change?
Okay, that's a good question. So before I directly answer that, I think some context on the fearless experience of change and what are we changing, because I think without that context it's hard to answer the question. We recognize that as the industry is changing, and what does that mean? The industry is no longer just, customers are no longer just buying data, they're no longer just buying software. They want answers. Many of the customers we're seeing pick up the need for geospatial technologies are not traditional users. They want to know the amount of green space that's changed in an urban environment. They want to know answers to very, very big questions and very big problems. And today, most recently, to solve problems, they'd have to buy data, they'd have to buy software, they'd have to pay someone to put it all together. And it's hard and it costs a lot of money. We want to change how the industry works and its underlying economy, and with that there's a lot of fear. We as a business sell software, right? But we recognize that in the future we won't be selling software. We'll be selling subscriptions to a service that delivers an answer or an information capability that someone subscribes to, that they plug into, connect to, and ultimately get answers to pressing questions that they have. Just like data, customers won't just buy data anymore, because data in and of itself is of limited value unless it's connected to software that solves a particular problem. So we expect there to be a lot of change in the industry, and our customers are forcing us to go down this road of change. And with change, there's a lot of fear. Fear typically triggers a psychological response, which is many times paralysis. People don't want to move, they're stuck. And we're telling our customers, our partners in our market, come with us, because we are a partner-focused company. We're asking our partners, okay, you're used to selling products a certain way. We're doing things in the technology stack that will support new business models. Come with us, change with us. We're asking the industry partners, data providers, change with us, come with us. And to overcome the fears of change, going back to your original question, we're extending many things to our customers and our partners. We're unconventional partners. We're giving them access to things that they've never had access to, such as source code, such as what's required, partnerships, what's required to be successful in business models that are different, revenue sharing models that are different. Because if we don't extend the olive branch and extend a window to change, nothing will change. So we have to change. And it's about, when I took over the business, and I said to the staff, we have to change. Me, Mladen, the team, the organization, we have to think differently. Because if we don't think differently, how can we expect our customers, our partners, and the market to change? So the change started with us. Yes. Now we're extending that change to the community, our partner network, our customers, and it does require overcoming fears. And we're changing business models so that partners trust us. We're changing how our partners get access to technology, in some cases giving a lot of source code to partners who we trust, who trust us, who have a commitment with us. So it's really, there's a lot of change in the air, but it's to change the way customers work, because they're asking us to change. So we're doing a lot of things with revenue models, technology models, partnership models, and hopefully our goal once again is to change the geospatial economy and the industry, because I don't think status quo is an option anymore.
Yes, status quo is not an option anymore, definitely. And on this count, when you said about change, I would like to quote Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "Be the change you want to see in the world."
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to see that Hexagon has that change, that change in its own thinking,
Right.
its own ways of doing
Absolutely.
business, and its own way how it sees its customers'
Absolutely.
needs. And the customer needs starts with data, I guess.
Yeah.
So when today the data scenario is such that we are seeing a flood of data, and data by itself, as you have said, is not of much value. Is
Correct.
not of much value.
Correct.
So how is it Hexagon Geospatial trying to make value for its users from data?
Okay, so that's a good question. It starts with an understanding that we both agree data has a lot of potential, but on the surface is of limited value.
Yes.
Until you apply something to it. And if you don't mind, I'll use a cooking example. If I want to cook an Italian meal, an onion is good, a tomato is good, pasta is good, and all the ingredient chicken is good, but individually they're all good, but of limited value. I'm not just going to eat an onion.
Yes.
But when I combine those ingredients and prepare a meal and serve that meal, it's very appetizing and very tasteful to many users who would pay for that meal. The same thing with data. Data is good when you combine multiple sources of data, which we enable with our platform. We are not a single source framework or platform. We have the ability to ingest multi-source content, everything from the Hexagon Imagery program through to multi-sensor or multispectral imagery, through to UAV data, through to terrestrial GPS, TPS, mobile mapping data, to social feeds, to dynamic sensor feeds, traffic lights, information, traffic sensors, weather sensors. For us, data is the fuel or the wind that our engines transform into something that's usable. And once again, when you combine all of these ingredients together with software, which we do, really having the world's most broadest geospatial platform supporting GIS data, remote sensing data, photogrammetry data, and a whole host of data types, we have the ability to cook solutions. And that's what really gives us an advantage and gives our customers an advantage to really build solutions that use that data combined with software to deliver a very specific solution and application.
Okay, would you like to cite one example of how Hexagon Geospatial is creating solutions for its customers?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a couple examples. Probably the one I'll start with is in the UK, and I talked about it in the Hexagon Live keynote, working with our partners Sterling Geo and an organization called Catapult UK and the Satellite Application Center. There's this need, and I'll explain the problem first. There was a big storm event and a big flooding event that occurred in the city of Hull in the UK. And what happened was that area, there was a lot of development, a lot of green space being converted, paving over green space. And when you have a very big storm event, a 50-year, 100-year storm event, very rapidly, the infrastructure, the sewers, the pipes, they can't handle all the water. It caused a lot of damage to property, to personal property, infrastructure, because there was flooding in the city of Hull. That instigated an effort to basically pass policies that will limit the extent of green space change, trees, vegetation, grass, parks, and not allow rezoning of up to a certain level. So the problem was, we got to be more careful when we change zoning from green to urban or gray space. And we basically built an application called an information service application called a Green Space Analyzer. Using multi-source content from multiple time periods, we're able to synthesize these satellite images, aerial images, elevation data sets, extract pertinent information from those data sets, land cover, land use information, stitch that all together in an analytical recipe, and then communicate the results, not as a GIS or as a remote sensing layer like a land change layer or a green space layer, as a set of numbers, as a dashboard, a ratio of green to gray, 1.2 to 1, 2 to 1 over time. So they can look at these reports and look at trends to understand what was, to better have a grasp of what is, but more importantly, to pass policies of what can be and what will be, okay? So this concept of ingesting multiple ingredients, including data types with multiple types of data, adding business intelligence to that, business analytics to that, and it's not about the map anymore. It's about being able to deliver the city, let's say Milton Keynes, in this particular case, reports on the amount of green space change. And what's beautiful now is with all these new beautiful microsatellites flying, we have daily revisits over these vast geographies. So now I have the ability. In the past, I'd have to order the data set, buy the data set, wait 3 months, and here's my report.
True.
Now we have the ability to sense the Earth very rapidly, very quickly, and update these analytics, these numbers, this very valuable information, and then get it into the hands of the people as a text message, as a PowerPoint, as a PDF, as a Word document, not as a map. I think the map, of course, is the fabric, but as the information that's pertinent to a given problem. And it's a beautiful example of how things are changing. And the customer, in this case, is not interested in buying a software package or buying data. They want to subscribe on a quarterly basis to a service that gives them a report or some indication, some dashboard on what's changed, how much has changed, and giving them some insight or answers into that complex problem.
That's a good way of going forward. Customers want to see what has changed and how much has it changed, and in bringing it in terms of operational efficiencies or productivity gains, they want to really measure the changes. So our Hexagon Geospatial solutions able to provide measurable ROI, returns on the investment to the customers?
I absolutely. I mean, our partners are the ones, so just to position who we are, we of course work with partners whose job it is to establish an ROI on a given solution. That's typically reflected in a response to RFPs or tenders that clearly establish there's a need to solve a problem. But the ROI in this particular case that I referenced was being able, and it's hard to tell what the ROI on this one will be because you're passing policy that will influence rezoning or redesignation of zoning, which will minimize the impact of floods. So in this particular ROI, we want to minimize the damage to infrastructure and personal property by minimizing the likelihood or the probability of floods through a 10-year storm event, a 50-year storm event, or perhaps even a 100-year storm event. So our mission is to really protect lives, property, infrastructure. That's the ROI. I mean, that's really why we're in business, because we recognize that the Earth's geography is changing at an incredible pace. And to make sense of this dynamically changing environment, we need to be able to quickly get answers to information that's pertinent and relevant and can be delivered in a very easy to use way, not as a software product, not as a data set, but as a service, as an information subscription, or more importantly, an information service.
Okay, one of the trends I observe in this geospatial industry traditionally has been that the value proposition and the benefit out of the geospatial technology has not been clearly delivered to the user for a long time. But definitely this kind of an approach, this kind of taking things forward more in a solution-centric manner for the customers will really increase the value of geospatial technology. But essentially, it depends upon the vendor and the user connect, and how well the vendor can really communicate, coordinate, and deliver the value of geospatial technology, create awareness, and make them learn and also implement in their organizations.
Absolutely.
So how do you see this progression over the vendor-user connect really improving for the betterment of, rather I would say for the benefit of users and for the real significance of this technology reaches the users? Yeah,
so I think it certainly requires a lot of outreach, right?
Exactly.
And the outreach is multi-level. I think I'll start at the beginning and then sort of work up. It starts at education. I think many users, we have to educate our students, those entering college, those in college, about the powerful capabilities that are available through the use of geospatial technologies, because we have these fresh minds, these very creative individuals who are now leaving colleges and universities who have the ability to now to apply geospatial technologies to to many, many different applications and industries. So there's certainly a level of outreach that has to happen at the educational level. Once you move beyond the educational level, then you look at nonprofits, think tanks, research institutes, those organizations that don't necessarily think about today, but think about the future, think about what are the pressing issues of the future and how do we start addressing those today, so we take a proactive stance as opposed to a reactive stance when it comes to solving what we anticipate to be a problem. So that type of outreach, and Hexagon certainly having relationships such as, like we do with Catapult UK, it's an organization, a research organization that's thinking 20, 30 years ahead and anticipating problems and establishing a relationship with some of their users and their customers, and working together with Hexagon. We're working together not to solve just a problem today, but to make sure that we are in a position to solve issues and problems as they become apparent in the future. And then, just looking at other, industry associations and, outreach through, even, coming from GeoInt, GeoInt, USGIF group, the OGC groups, the ISPRS groups, the different standards groups and committees. I think the outreach has to happen at multiple levels, and certainly each one of those avenues allow us to connect to users in a different way, so that together we can formulate strategies to solve problems in the future.
Okay, I'll go again back to the initiatives at Hexagon Geospatial. I think that's exactly a year that Hexagon has announced the Hexagon Imagery program, and you have started partnering with Airbus Defense. You also have partnerships with Skybox Imaging, Black Sky and Global, and several other companies, including Esri for partnerships with content, and also the platform for content.
Yes.
So why is Hexagon pretty keen on becoming a data provider as well, because it's traditionally been a software and a solution provider?
Yeah, I think using analogies, I'll use the wind turbine or the windmill concept, which of course we as Hexagon Geospatial use quite a lot. To generate electrical power, we recognize with a windmill that you have a raw kinetic energy source in wind. And if you could transform wind into that raw kinetic power, electricity, it's much more useful to end users, because you can light the room, you can use your phone, you can power your cities, governments, etc. If we translate that to the geospatial industry, the wind is data. So we can build the best software, we can build the best solutions, but if there's no data or content flowing through those systems to turn that content into information, it's of limited value. So you can't have one without the other, and for that reason we recognized not only initiating our own imagery program, such as is the case with the Hexagon Imagery program, but also extending partnerships to other types of data providers, content providers, such as the ones you've mentioned, Black Sky recently, and Airbus, etc. We have the ability to pull multiple different types of data into a solution: airborne, satellite, microsatellite, UAV, terrestrial, mobile mapping. They're all ingredients, and certainly we will collect some of our own data and use some of our own data, but also recognize there's a lot of data out there that covers different parts of the world, because we are an organization that's global. We have to be able to tap into all available data sources so that our partners can build solutions that allow them to quickly get answers to pressing problems. And the key to that will be content partnerships, but also having the content available in our platforms so that we can in fact get value out of the data. And really those partnerships are important, because it's the wind, it's the raw energy source to a lot of the issues that can be solved. And when you apply software to data, you get something new. You get a derivative capability that's even more beneficial and more valuable.
Okay, so you're mixing up your data, that is incoming data, along with the software, and creating the solutions for the users. In last year, I see that Hexagon Geospatial has reorganized its existing products and created the Power Portfolio. What is the rationale in reorganizing the existing products, and how are the users actually benefiting with this reorganization?
Okay, so I mean, if you look at the history of the organization, Hexagon Geospatial came together as a collection of product lines that have been acquired by Hexagon and Leica Geosystems over the course of the last 15 years. GIS products, remote sensing products, photogrammetry products. It was very apparent early on as we started signing on new business partners. When I would show them my PowerPoint slides and talk about what I have, I'd say I have Rodos Imagine, I have GeoMedia, I have Image Station, I have ER Mapper, I have Apollo, I have Web Map, I have Portal, I have Mobile Map. It's too much. It's not that their technology is too much. It's just I can't remember everything. It doesn't make sense.
True.
So we recognized that, but then we also looked at how do we sell this? How do we get this across to the market in a very easy to use way? And we recognize we have to rationalize our offering so it makes sense. And going back to the windmill concept of 3 windmills, energy, data being the fuel, but we start with the ability to produce data. That's the producer suite, largely desktop products that cover GIS, remote sensing, and photogrammetry. And we sell it like that. We sell annual subscriptions to the producer suite, either as a perpetual license or online. So it's a lot easier to sell and use. And they look the same. They have a ribbon interface. So the producer suite, you can put a box around saying, this is for customers, professional customers who want to produce geospatial information or content. Very traditional market, user base, etc. And then we said, okay, once these same organizations produce data, there's a lot of data out there. What do they do with it? Well, they got to get it into people's hands. How? They have to provide the data. So that's where we took Apollo and some of our compression and delivery capabilities and said, well, these products produce, take the results from the producer suite and provide it. So that's the provider suite. We can provide data as a service to other applications. And then it's not good enough just providing data, you have to use the data for a solution. And we recognize, well, we have a lot of platform technologies, web platform, mobile platform. That's the platform suite, the power to build solutions that use the data that's provided to them and then deliver custom value add solutions. So we ended up with the producer suite to produce data, the provider suite to provide data, and the platform suite to build solutions that use the data. So that was the rationale, and honestly, it's been very well received, and it just makes sense for our partners, for our customers, and we also sell them that way. So it's a lot easier on the organization and for our market and our customers, and it's really been a very successful and win-win strategy.
I think Hexagon Geospatial is making it very, very easy for the customers to use this complicated technology.
Absolutely.
You also, I have one last question. You talked about map is not an end in itself, but map definitely is the building block for solutions.
Yeah.
So how do you see and where do you see Hexagon playing a key role in evolving this map and the basic building blocks of solutions to be more intuitive, to be more user-friendly going forward from now? Yeah,
good question. I mean, I referenced this during the keynote at Hexagon Live. And we talk a lot about what is and I know there have been some articles on this topic, what is the map of the future?
Map of the future.
And I made a pretty bold statement at the conference, and I've said it other times too. I don't think the map of the future is a map. Because a map, if we look at the several last generations of mapping and the associated economy of those times, a map is, regardless of whether it's a paper map or even a digital map, a map is static. It reflects a picture of what was, okay, very philosophical, of what was. I believe the map of the future, it has to be dynamic, it has to be fresh, it has to be alive. It has to communicate with me, not me communicate with them. I shouldn't have to pick it up and then infer something, a relationship from that map. The map of the future has to be something that makes sense, something that communicates with me. And I use the word alive. It has to be alive. It has to be connected. It has to be portable. It has to travel with me, right? And I don't think it's a map, because a map constrains us to a box, and the world's not a box. The world is much more than a map box, or the world is much more than a GIS. The world is much more than, the world is alive. And I think human beings in our futile efforts apply and have made great advancements in technology to map the world, but our maps are so old and are so difficult to maintain and costly to maintain. And I'm not saying we want to be the ones to solve this problem, but I love this industry, and I put challenges to ourselves, my organization, our organization, and the industry, to build the map of the future. And I think the map of the future is something that's alive. It talks to me. It's a service, and I don't even know if the word service gives it justice, but that's the only word I could think of right now. It's something that it's a subscription, something that gives me information, and it may not even be a map. It may be a series of ratios or numbers. Once again, this green space example. It may be something that tells me what the financial potential of a forest stand is. It may be something that says you got to go to this building because there's a fire here, and there's 4 children trapped in this room, and they're on the 4th floor, and I don't need a map, right? But it's location-based intelligence, and I have to be able to get it dynamically, and the time is now, because once again, and Hexagon's very well positioned because we have the sensors needed to collect the data, content partnerships with microsatellites and all these new sources to feed these engines. We have the ingredients to make the map of the future, and it's not a map. It's because a map is a box. It's much more than that. It's an information service that gives us answers. And part of what we're now working on is to define the map of the future is something called we call smart maps. Mm-hmm. It's m.app. It's a play on words, but the map of the future is not a map. It's an application that delivers an information service by synthesizing and fusing multiple sources of content together around an analytical recipe that delivers a solution. I like using cooking as an example because it's really cooking and integrating multiple ingredients to make something that's different, that's unique, that tastes good, that's refreshing, that's alive, and that's really our emphasis. And like I said, we're going to try to crack that nut. I mean, our goal is to build it and see what happens, and certainly encourage a lot of partners in industry to think this way too, because I'm pretty passionate about the mapping industry and what the next generation looks like, and certainly want to make sure that we have the tools to get there. And I think we can make great advances based on where we've come from over the last 4 decades, but we've only scratched the surface of what's possible. We've seen players like Google enter the space, Microsoft, of course, Intergraph, ESRI, all these great companies, but I think there's much more ahead, and certainly we want to lead the way, and that's our goal.
Fantastic. It's great, as you have said, future maps are not just maps or map boxes, but it's much more beyond simple maps, and it's going to be very dynamic and quite intuitive. And I wish you all the best in achieving your vision. It always excites me to talk to you and understand your vision and your passion for this technology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.